What's going on, everyone? This is DJ Aceman along with the legendary Life of Big Don here today for the Peace and Chaos program. Big Don, what's going on?
Nothing much. We're live. We're back at it once again. We got a special show tonight in terms of the topics we're covering. Tonight we're going after all libs today. That's why we're not holding back anything in terms of our biases here.
Exactly. So what we're going to have planned tonight on the program is we're going to be talking about the Smith College incident that has been actually it's a controversy now, and it's been all over the news as of lately. It's been on all national news, and it's been a big story in terms of race and also college campuses. So we're going to be discussing that. We're also going to be discussing everything that's going on with Cuomo as well, all the stuff going on with Governor Cuomo. And also, we're going to be discussing President Biden and some of the actions he has done this week, and also the stimulus, and also what was going on in Syria this week. In Iraq this week. So we're going to be discussing everything going on in the Middle East, some things with President Biden and the stimulus, and also the big story of the night, as you can see by the thumbnail, is the Smith College controversy. So let's get right into it and let's explain what happened.
I'm very proud of that thumbnail, by the way. So
not bad. I actually thought it was really good too. Very professional.
I think I could change the title a little bit just so we won't make it like too edgy. But I like Bernie. He's sitting there.
I know that's like our guy there.
Yeah, he's our little mascot right now. So we get a new one.
But anyways, also,
we got to plug something here
before we start. Actually, we actually changed our logo, as a lot of you may have seen before this went on tonight. If you subscribe to us, you could see that we did change the logo. We made it a lot brighter. If you can see prior, this was our old one. It was like a little bit of a circle, and then the old Peace and Chaos.
Looks like it looks like the Amico logo. You know, like gas company.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it looks. You can Google a picture of it right now. We can compare.
What is it?
The Amico. I don't know. AMIKO. CO. No. Yeah.
Let's see here. Hey, we're pulling it up right now. I can't find it anywhere on here.
Oh, really?
Oh, here it is. New Amico?
Yep.
I've never heard of it. AMICO. I'll look up the logo. Where are they out of? Oh, yeah.
Probably, I don't know, somewhere in Texas, because that's where all the oil is.
A little bit. I can see a little bit. I think the
colorway.
The color a little bit. Yeah, I can see the color, but I can see a little why the shape is definitely there, but we were not really going for that when we did it. But yeah, if you go look back here, that's the new one.
Yep.
This was the old one. Here to here, I see some similarities in some ways. I think it's just the shape that reminds you of it and the color scheme, but we decided to get a more vivid approach on this one. It's a lot more simpler too, and it's a lot more noticeable. And yeah, we're just plugging the Twitter right here. Everyone go follow our tweet.
Shameless plugs. We're also on Instagram now, so
we're also on Instagram as well. So you can go follow us at Peace and Chaos
Podcast.
Underscore podcast on Instagram. Peace and Chaos underscore podcast on Instagram. Same logo. So you can definitely recognize us. All right. Now let's get right into the Smith College controversy. So this event actually happened back in 2018. And what this event is that, so there are a couple events here. So the reason why it's in the news this week, last couple weeks, is because of a whole another story with a faculty member. But the reason why this even came to issue was because of 2018. Mm-hmm. And I'll go into detail what happened. Or Big Don, do you want to get into detail?
Yeah, sure. I was the one that kind of said that we should do this story, so I can
Yeah,
kind
I'll
of go
get
into
you
it.
to it.
All right. So what happened back in 2018? So the whole story goes there was a college there was a college student who was around a sophomore, and she was doing some sort of summer program. I think it was a summer camp at Smith at the time. And by the way, Smith is a college out of, I would say, Western New England. It's around that area,
Yeah, I'd agree.
Central
Western, it's like in
Mass.
the Berkshires. Yeah.
And the whole context of this story is so one day a, stu- a student woke up really late to get, and so the dining hall that she was supposed to go to wasn't serving breakfast anymore. So she noticed that there was a summer camp going on, and then she grabbed food from it, and then she went to a dorm nearby so to eat it. So next thing you know, public safety got notified, and then they came to her dorm and politely asked her to leave, and then she left. Now, later that day, or I'm not sure when, but it was definitely soon, she knew. She then went on Facebook and said and cried racism, saying that the public safety was racially profiling her and asking her to leave because she's black. She then named dropped I think two staff members. I think it was three staff members. Some of them that weren't even associated with the situation at the time. So she name dropped those people, and then they got fired. And then it would go, and then from there she would go on to get national attention from the media. She would go on, I think, Good Morning America. She had a news story at ABC, and the college apologized to her, and then they employed some stuff like diversity training, focusing on white fragility and stuff like that, the whole 9 yards. And so recently there was an independent investigation going on being conducted of whether or not there was actually racism involved, and turns out there wasn't. And this comes in the light of one of their staff members resigning over stuff. I think during like one orientation, she was not asked to rap because she's white, and another instance, she was I think asked to speak at some sort of conference about like being privileged as a white person, and she politely declined to do that. And then she pretty much started a YouTube page, and then some of those posts went viral. And then the New York Times last week published a whole story about it. And then a lot of fallout happened from general conservative media. The college made a statement, of course, denouncing any association with her. They even claimed that she tried to make it pay. She wanted them to give them money. There's a whole lot of stuff going within this story, but the big thing here is there's been a lot of instances of the Smith College workers, and we're talking like people that make like $30,000 to $40,000 a year. Smith's tuition is way higher than that. It's around $78,000 per year. That's a lot. Looking down upon them and then just treating them like absolute crap. And it really puts into question here because there's been a lot of instances at colleges like these, specifically, I think within this CNN article, it cites instances at Yale, Barnard, and Ball State. It really puts in perspective sort of the culture that's going on within college campuses. And me and PJ will certainly say this is definitely affecting our colleges, especially with events that happened last summer. So, PJ, what are your thoughts on sort of the climate that's going on with Smith right now?
Honestly, I think that it's kind of inevitable in some ways because of the whole incident that happened years ago. I think that since it did happen only a couple years ago, about 2.5, 3 years ago, I think that they, I think it's something that they're going to have to deal with, and I think that they're trying to get staff and faculty to adhere to trainings that are based on are about racially trained trainings, and I think that they're trying to do everything in their best interest to make sure that their campus is a safe and um, inclusive campus where everyone is included, everyone
Right.
is, you know, it's a welcoming campus, because I think that's the whole thing with with like right now. Um, every campus wants to make sure that all students, depending on their sexual orientation, their race, their nationality, everything. They want to make sure that they're safe and that they feel that they're a part of the school community. And I think in the case of Smith College, I think that's what they want. And I know that some
Yeah.
I know that some of the faculty in this case, they felt like they got targeted, with the professor who resigned, and also the other faculty members who were involved in this case. They feel like maybe they got targeted in a way, maybe because of their being white, and I know that the universities try to do things in the best interest, and sometimes some of their employees may not like it. And I think that this just goes to show you how inevitable it is in a way, because universities want to provide their students with the best education, but at the same time, some people may not like some of the methods that their university chooses for different reasons. It might not even be related to race. It could be related to budget, but it could be, they're always going to put it into simpler terms. I think that workers at these universities, especially, professors and other people, they're not going to like some of the decisions that higher management makes. It could vary on all different reasons, but in this case, it's about race training because they feel like they're getting targeted. And I see both sides, and I think that it just shows you how it is right now, if you are working in a university.
Yeah. I'm going to go on a very hot take here.
All right,
I'm going
I
to do
want to
it.
hear it.
All right. So, like you said, I think these universities need to be well intended in the way that they're trying to make their college like a more inclusive environment. I think they go about it the wrong way. And this speaks to not just colleges, but many corporations as well. It starts with the idea of white fragility. Now, let's go look up Robin DiAngelo, the author of White Fragility, because I got a bone to pick with her. Now, the problem with a lot of these college trainings, and this reflects heavily on the student population there, it's why conservatives get all rowdy of like, oh, look at these SJWs right there. You like the classic memes, you know that. It's how Jordan Peterson got famous, how Brett Weinstein got famous. All these people got famous because they were subjugated to this college sort of wokeness, for lack of better terms. Now, I think it starts with this idea that I'm not sure where it's coming from, but apparently this idea that like it's not okay to be white, and of course it is. I think we can all say that we should be striving to have a more egalitarian environment within colleges. It should, but but the way of going about this, especially with the way Rob DiAngelo describes it, it's completely stupid, in my opinion. It focuses a lot less on systemic policy and more focused on like bringing and like outside consultants that have no idea what they're doing and they're just dealing with like racism. Like, let's say, for example, let's take a hypothetical here. Now, let's say there's an actual racist person within a company or a college. The the way you would address that is to not bring in some outside consultant and then say how like white people are like inherently evil. Now, this doesn't encompass all everyone within colleges. I do not speak for all colleges, but I think that or corporations. But this is certainly showing. This is definitely coming up within a large extent within a lot of these colleges. It's making like a bad image, in my opinion.
Yeah, I hear that. I think that in this case too, going back to the professor who ended up resigning, she was a librarian first, and then she
Yeah,
became like a,
I think she was like a residence director.
yeah, I think she demoted herself. I think she took a lower paying job because she didn't like her manager in the library because of that incident.
Yeah,
But just going back to this and this whole book, I never actually read it. Big Don, did you ever read this book?
I've never read it, but
I've
I've
never read
heard
it
this
either.
was like mocked a bunch of times. Like if you go on Robin DiAngelo's Wikipedia page, it's probably like covered and like
This is on our website right here.
yeah,
This is it just gives you a quick synopsis of it. And I have never read anything from Robin DiAngelo. I have heard of her, however. I've seen her in the media. She's been talked about a lot. among Tucker Carlson. I mean, he kind of talks about her a lot, and other conservatives have discussed things about her and her whole thesis and ideology. So I have heard of her, but I've never actually physically read her books. Um, yeah, I think that what you said earlier about you were talking about workers and this whole white fragility thing is that I think a lot of people don't really want to talk about this stuff, anyways. I
Yeah,
think a lot of people, like when you work, I used to work at this one place. I'm not going to name it, but I did work at
right.
this one place and we had to do a lot of diversity trainings, but it was a very diverse place that I had to work at. I worked with everyone from everywhere, and it was just so that you could have better interpersonal skills because I think that one of the reasons why they do that is because you can understand people better. They don't know where you come from anyways, a lot of your workers, unless you talk about it. And I think that in a lot of ways, maybe sometimes the diversity training is there for people who may not be culturally aware of other people's differences, you know? I
Right.
think that's the reason why. And I think with white fragility, it's talking a lot about socio and racial there's a lot of differences, and I think that it talks a lot about why white people get uncomfortable when they talk about racism, and I think that's her whole statement about it, and how I mean in North America in particular she's talking about how why the white race is basically they live in a social environment. She says it right here: white people in North America live in a society a social environment that protects and insulates them from race-based stress. And then she says this insulated environment of racial protection builds white expectations for racial comfort while at the same time lowering the ability to tolerate racial stress. So I think she's trying to say here is that right here in North America, she's probably targeting white people from Canada or the US. I think what she's trying to say is that she sees it as a place where white people benefit, and she sees it as a place where people usually don't talk about racial issues. And I think going back to the point with Smith College, I think that a lot of the people did not like these trainings because they felt targeted out by their
Yep.
employers.
If you look at like, there's a lot of studies on this. If you look at like how effective diversity trainings are, they're not really that effective. If I'm being completely honest with you, because I mean, I think it puts everything in a vacuum in terms of like the interactions you can have with someone,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not really how society works. And with the case with this is just blatant classism, if you ask me. I mean, it's the people that got fired during 2018. Guess what? They can't get jobs anymore because they've been kind of axed. They've been put on this blacklist of being like of having this involvement with LGBT being racist. No one's gonna hire them for it.
Mm.
And then in the meantime, this woman who reported the incident, I mean, she got the national attention she wants. I think she's now doing some sort of prestigious internship, research internship at Columbia.
Mm. Yeah, but I think it shows you that sometimes people, and this is just going back to the whole case. This is no, we're not talking about Robin DiAngelo in this case, but we're talking about Smith College again. It's kind of about, I think sometimes when we hear stories in the media, sometimes people just jump to a conclusion and don't ever hear the evidence. You know, I
Yeah.
do you think that's an accurate statement?
Absolutely, that is definitely an accurate statement.
I think human nature sometimes our brains want us to think a certain way, while other times we never take into consideration things that we would our
We want to
mind would
read the
never come
headlines.
to. You know, remember Jesse Smollett?
Actually, no.
You don't remember the time when well, he like staged an attack. He's the actor, Jesse Smollett. It was
Jesse.
kind of because people thought he actually was mugged by white men, but in reality he was mugged by other men. And this that incident definitely took the media until they found out that he actually hired people to mug him. It was like a whole hiring. He did it for his own career, and then he went. I think he went to court. I think he was found not guilty, if I'm
Wow.
not mistaken. Yeah, it was this whole incident. I don't even know if he has a career anymore, but that incident was big. And remember the incident Bubba Wallace this year?
Yeah, I do.
But that was okay. So the Bubba Wallace incident. Bubba Wallace is a black NASCAR driver, and weirdly, weirdly and seriously enough, he I think I don't know where it was. I think it was Talladega, if I'm not mistaken. And every race car driver has their own personal garage for the weekend. I think that's how it works in NASCAR.
Yep.
You have it so you can park your car in there, have every all your team in there to repair and everything like that. And there's usually like strings to pull up and pull down. They usually, I don't know if they're automatic um, garage doors, but I think this one was a pull, and the pull looked exactly like a noose. And I remember when that story came out, people thought that somebody placed the noose there. That was the whole story. And I mean, Bubba wasn't wrong that that was a noose. It looked exactly like it. It was a,
Right.
it looked just like one. And it was weird that I think his was the only one because all the other drivers were white, I believe, and they did not have that one. It was just extremely strange that he had that one. But in reality, the FBI did an investigation. They found out that that was there since 2019. So it was there for about 7 months prior to when he was racing. So in fact, it wasn't intentional, but it did look strange. And I think people, when they heard it before they heard about the FBI report, jumped to conclusion this is a racial targeted crime. And I think it goes back to this case too. I think people jump to conclusion a little too quickly. I do believe that issues can happen; they do rise up. But I think in this case, um, it kind of does remind me a little bit of the way people kind of jump to conclusion on things. And I think in this case, people who might have heard of it, and I think the media all did, they all thought that this was a racially targeted, when in reality, the inner investigation claimed it wasn't. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, overall, I think we probably bring up a good point, and it's also worth mentioning here. I think we're seeing this with a lot of cases in terms of jumping to conclusions and this whole idea of like cancel culture. I think it's just gotta be the way of how you like judge things
I agree. Yeah.
is ultimately what's going to come down to.
I mean, another thing with cancel culture, which I think is interesting, is that I mean, this whole Dr. Seuss thing now. But
Yeah,
I think, I mean, Potato Head, I think they're targeting things now that they believe could be. I think sometimes they go up and over on some issues with this whole cancel culture. But I
yep,
think with cancel culture, you can find something wrong with something, and then you could use that as a way to just eliminate it, you know?
right.
Like you could find a movie maybe released in maybe 30 years ago or something, and you could say, oh, there's one scene in the movie and today would not be politically correct, therefore we're going to have to cancel it, and it's gone, um, or it gets threatened to be canceled. Or I mean, you have other incidences where maybe someone's views are not the same as yours, and you just say, all right, you know what, we're canceling them, and then they're gone.
Yep.
I think it shows you today how some people maybe aren't tolerant of things, because I think the thing with cancel culture, which is kind of dangerous, is that if we cancel these things, we're never going to have them as ways of teaching, of saying that is wrong and here's why, but we're still going to allow it to be there because it teaches you instead of having it so that it's eliminated. Because as you know, like if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. I mean, cancel culture could lead us down an area where if we cancel everything now and you never know it even existed, you could have something in the future which is similar.
Yeah. I think I think to a lot of extent, I think it's got to do a lot with the people who are in positions of power, and you definitely see that in this case with Smith College. We look at the students versus the faculty member. Obviously, these students that are going into Smith College, they're most likely come from an upper echelon society, and so with this case, I think a lot of it, well, not really intended to, is just like an exercise of the power influence they have over these institutions. And this
Agreed.
goes all the way up to some of the biggest corporations ever. I mean, if you look at Dr. Seuss and Potato Head there, that wasn't from like a mob or anything. That was from the companies deciding, hey, we need we have to target a broader demographic here, and they probably. And I wouldn't be surprised if they actually did intentionally because Dr. Seuss sales just skyrocketed after that. I won't be surprised if it was that much of a business tactic to say, okay, here we're removing these because of racism, and then conservatives would just go absolutely insane for them. There's a video out there by H Bomber guy.
Hmm.
He does good. He does good YouTube essays, and then it talks about like wokeness. And then remember like Gillette, the ad that they did back in like 2018, where they targeted like masculinity, and everyone
Yeah,
kind of lost their crap because of that.
yeah.
I mean, Gillette saw a huge surge in sales. So,
I know, right? And remember, I think it was this one was more controversial. Remember with Goya over the summer, like
oh yeah, Goya.
AOC was saying no, and then everyone started buying Goya, and like I think it went up a little bit. Their sales went up.
Yeah, cancel culture is going to be the new business tactic. So,
I think in
and
some
that's
ways, yeah,
dangerous.
that is dangerous though, because you're kind of exploiting yourself in a way. You're
You
kind
are.
of stigmatizing yourself because some people may actually buy into cancel culture, and they might say, you know what? We're not going to actually buy these products anymore. While others are going to say, let's buy more and more. We're going against cancel culture. I think it's going to go. I think it's going to go one on one with customers, and I think that you make an interesting point with all these, with whoever runs the production of Dr. Seuss books today, how they see it as a good business tactic, but I think it might start wearing off, and it
Yeah,
actually
they're
may go off
normalizing
to
it.
its real intentions of eliminating. But anyways, I just want to go back here to the Smith College, and I know Big Don, you asked me a question about like being a college student today, but I want to get your take too because you're a college student. I want to get your take on what do you think? Do you think this is a big challenge for universities in the coming years, and also not just universities, but also corporations, businesses that want to make an environment so that everyone can feel welcomed? What do
It
you
is a
think about that?
challenge because it's naturally political, and whenever you have those like tensions boiling between by introducing these topics and then having it be discussed or like introduced around the masses of people that are within your university or corporation, it's going to boil over to some. It might boil over to some heated political discussion, and then once someone crosses the line, I mean, they'll get written up by HR, and then that's that. They're gone.
Mm.
They pack their stuff. They're out.
Mm-hmm.
I
I
mean,
hear you.
even now, it's just within within my sort of antidote experience. I mean, our college in particular has been focusing a lot more on sort of this having more inclusion. Now we're under pretty specific circumstances, but overall, I think it's still prevalent that a lot of these diversity trainings, a lot of these events are really hard to appeal because they because the only people that are going to go to them are the people that want to like enforce them on the masses.
True. Yeah, you make a good point there. I think that, I mean, if they start forcing it, do you think it could be controversial? If you do you
It
think
could be
people?
controversial because I think there's going to be a natural resistance to it, especially among people with certain backgrounds, with certain political views. They it's probably a lot of people, white people, that are going to be outraged by it by in the way that's being framed.
Mhm. Now, do you think, let's say, I'm just going to give you a hypothetical here because I think this book, White Fragility, is going to be around for a while, with a lot of different things. Do you think that, let's say, public school system forced their students to read this book? Do you think this would be, uh, do you think over time people would, like, because right now, I think some people may believe that this is against their political views, and therefore they might not want their children to read it. But let's say in 15 years, do you think we'll live in a society where this book will be viewed as, I mean, not as polarizing?
I think it's harder to project that far out, if I were to say, because
True.
I
How
don't know.
about 5 years?
Society is becoming more socially progressive, but at the same time, I think there's more of a resistance to it now than it was before.
Okay.
So if it were like enforced within like 5 years on a very broad scale, to like public schools, you're going to see a lot of outrage about it.
Okay,
Trust me.
I agree.
It's going to be this whole entire culture war narrative in which I don't know that I feel like a lot of stuff can happen there.
But you know what? I think that's kind of where the politics are right now. I think they're kind of aiming towards a culture war in a way.
Yeah, a lot of people are hyping up any kind of war. I think they let's see, if I were to go back to the CPAC here, I'm gonna go back to the Republicans here. This is gonna be one diss. Ted Cruz was talking about civil war. They're
It
like
was
the Democrats want to start a civil war with us.
well, I mean, that's also just political tactics, you know. That's just kind of the way of the name of the game in a way, because I mean, Robbie Starbuck, I know he's from, I think he's running for Tennessee Congress, and he said um, he was discussing how the left is defeating the right in the culture wars. He said that at a speech last week on Thursday, I believe, and he was discussing how they have Hollywood, they have academia, um, they're running the school systems. He was kind of listing things that he saw Republicans and conservatives at losing. And he says he identified that the culture wars are something that can exceed influence on the young generation. He saw this as a way of basically telling Republicans, wake up, you're losing. And I mean, it is important to literally hold everything. I mean, I don't believe that uh, I I mean, I'm someone who believes that Hollywood should be basically unbiased. Same with academia. Same with everything. I think it should be unbiased, and I think that education should serve. I mean, it should be equal education. I mean, I think education should be a way of not like indoctrinating students, but a way. I mean, I will
I mean,
say
here's the
this.
thing with academia. If you were to ask me, a lot of I think conservatives are generally anti-academia, and what I mean by that is they reject like academic like research and stuff like that. I mean, I mean, if we were to make it more conservative, what would that look like within certain departments? Would it be like I don't know, aside with like your sciences department that's like all about like global warming
Well,
being like completely natural? Like
I
that's
think
not scientific consensus.
I think that the reason why conservatives, I think they're more targeting humanities, so political science, and they're also targeting history. And I think with conservatives, their main point right now, I mean, a lot of them do not believe. I think there are a lot of young conservatives who do believe in the science aspect. I think the issue is how you look at critical race theory, you look at the origins of the United States, and you look at the Revolutionary War. Um, you look at all of that and they find problems not in the science side. I mean, some might dislike the idea of global warming, even though it's real, but they may really take offense to the way that today a lot of our founding fathers um, were
Slave
slaveholders. And I think that people, they believe that this is a stigmatized way of making fun of our country. And I think that that's that in academia. So I think they're targeting more people in the humanities aspect of academia. So not the science part. I'm sure they will be targeting science people, but it's academia. No, humanities. So they're going to be targeting mostly people who maybe are working in English, history, political science, international relations. That's who they're going after.
Mhm.
I think it's because that is not so much about statistics and quantitative variables like sciences. I think in science is more logic based, anyways. I think humanities is more about, um, having an opinion, narratives, things of that nature that are not quantitative. Because history, you can view it in so many different ways, and I think for conservatives, they view the way that people are stigmatizing the origins of the US, like the 1619 project. That's like a
Mhm.
good example. They don't like that, and that's what they're going after in terms of academia.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, maybe in terms of like history, but I'm not sure if that's prevalent in terms of like the social sciences department because I don't know. I never really heard like there are many good like conservative arguments in favor of like sociological arguments. I think there's a lot more nuance that has to go with it, especially if you're coming at from a perspective of a politician.
Hmm. Yeah,
But yeah, I think that's a interesting thing to ponder. But I think we covered pretty much everything with that. I mean, it's a very, I mean, we could spend the whole podcast on like the what's going on within public universities and private universities like Smith,
hmm,
and the
I
debates
agree.
of like what the culture is going on right there, like what the repercussions are. But let's get into some actual canceling that's going on. We're going to be talking about Governor Andrew Cuomo. He's been in the news as of late. That dude's in hot water.
Yeah, he is in hot water. I'm just looking at some of the headlines. If we go right here, um, with the whole, I mean, this is just another liar situation. Cuomo's inner circle, things that are going on right now.
Yeah.
Everything going on with the whole sexual allegations that are
Now we did
going
cover the
on.
COVID.
Now, we did cover COVID. That was 2 weeks ago on our program. We discussed the Cuomo COVID controversy. Now it's the whole sexual assault controversy that is going on with Governor Cuomo of New York. Um, there's been a lot of stuff going on here in New York. Um, I know there's been, I believe, 3 women now. There
Yeah,
was a picture that actually came out. I know I
yeah.
saw it
There's a
on
picture of Cuomo
Fox.
just like holding a woman by like the face, and then the Cuomo, and then the woman was like really freaking terrified there.
Yeah, but right now it's all these questions if Cuomo's going to step down. And I know recently he had a press conference where he apologized, but he said he was not going to resign. And this is beginning to be a big, serious incident. There are pictures about this, and it shows that I don't know how much longer this is going to be. Do you think he's going to resign, Big Dog? What do you think?
Oh God, it depends how far into the investigation they go. If I'm being quite honest with you, like if something actually comes up, like if they actually find some, I'm not sure if they could find evidence of it because we ultimately it's hard to determine that in terms of like drawing up like actual evidence for it. But if stuff continues to come out, like if more people start like saying, "Oh, I've been sexually assaulted by Cuomo," he might resign.
How many do you think there's a limit to how many? Say if like, I mean, this could go on forever too. But say if like, I don't know how many. I mean, three is already a pretty big number. But I don't know. I don't know how many more. Maybe like 2 or 3 more women come out. Let's say they doubled the number to six,
Yeah,
of 6 women accusing him of allegations. Do you think that this could? Do you think that he would decide to leave? Because I don't know about you, but I think that he would. Um, I think that he would probably rather, for his own reputation, work out until I think it's 2022 and then just leave office then and not seek another term.
yeah. Here's the thing: if more people come out and if there's an actual case, Cuomo could be in a position of resigning if he is guilty.
Hmm.
Now, if he's not guilty, he'll probably fight to the he'll probably fight it.
Yeah.
But I think there's going to either way. I think there's going to be a push within the New York State Senate to try to get him removed if there's more evidence to come out, and then from there, it's just going to be a question of what the Cuomo reputation could be. Because let's not remember, the Cuomo family is pretty powerful. I mean, if you look at, I mean, his father was the governor of New York. His brother is on CNN.
Hmm.
I mean, this could face some serious repercussions for the Cuomo image.
True. I agree. Yeah. You definitely make some good points. I mean, they're very recognizable, not just in New York, but also hypothetically in the US, just in the whole country. And I think that he wants to protect his family's image, but he also wants to, I think he also wants to protect his own image, his own reputation. And I don't know if he would step down immediately. I think there would need to be a thorough investigation, and also he would probably want to work out until he would want to be governor at least until I think next year when it's the next gubernatorial race in New York.
Yep.
I think he would see that as more acceptable to step down because he's in his 60s, I believe. So I think that he would probably see that as an acceptable reason to just step down from political power and give up and maybe just go behind the scenes or just stay out of the public eye. I think that that might be a better option for him. But I mean, these are serious allegations, you know, and if it does hurt him, I mean, if he does seek office and then they find a thorough investigation, they do find him guilty. I don't know what's going to happen to the Cuomo image. I don't know. And I mean, Chris Cuomo came out recently on CNN and he said he understands all the incidents going on with his brother in the headlines, but he said he cannot talk about it. He said this, I think, on Wednesday night. And what's that going to do for him? I mean, his reputation might be limited too on CNN after this
Yep.
because because here's the whole thing I get. I mean, and now I'm kind of going on Chris Cuomo a little bit, but like he has his brother on. And I mean, the COVID incident, don't forget the COVID incident too. People are
Yeah.
forgetting that when they're focusing on this.
Yeah. They downplayed that,
I don't know if Cuomo,
and Cuomo dealt with that badly, and I think he's dealing with these allegations pretty badly as well in terms of like a media perspective.
I think best case scenario for Governor Cuomo, don't seek another term.
Yeah, I think if he unless he clears his public image, I think it's going to be hard for him
I agree. I agree.
because you don't want to be in the public spotlight anymore after an incident like that. You just don't.
Mm-hmm. And he's already had two incidents. I mean, he's had COVID incident and now this, and this is all within a span of a month and a half, 2 months.
Yep.
I mean, this is recent. This is going to hurt his chances big time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's why I always am a little uncertain. I don't know. I don't really know if this is the right thing for him. Maybe should he step down? I think he's all focused on reputation, though. Reputation. He's recognizable by his constituents in New York State. You know, he has such a big reputation in terms of the public spotlight. Because don't forget, I'm not from New York, but
Yeah.
I've seen him. I saw him on the news every single day during when the coronavirus was really just affecting reality. I saw him all throughout the spring and summer. And I mean, his reputation was pretty good. I mean, for me, I thought good things of him. I never really knew him too like that well because I'm not from New York. I don't really follow New York politics a whole lot. But I mean, when I saw him, I was like, you know, he seems like a pretty decent governor. You know, he's trying to handle everything. And now with all these allegations and
It's like, oh, never mind.
cover ups, I'm like, yeah, never mind.
Yeah, well,
And
I remember we pegged him. We remember talking about this a couple of times. We pegged him as a potential vice president pick before Biden came out and said, like, we get a woman vice president. We pegged him as a potential presidential candidate to run 2024. And now his image is just like he went from that to being, he's probably out of a career at this point.
I think that's very accurate. I don't know if he's going to get reelected. I think there are other candidates probably who may have more clout than him now, and I think that that's what's going to hurt him. And also, I think I even think that a lot of Democrats were now criticizing him too, saying that these are serious allegations. And I mean, they are. I mean, Republicans are going after him because that's what they do. But I think people in his own party now are kind of turning their back on him, and I think that that's going to hurt his chances. I think my advice to him: just step away from politics after this. You know, um, yeah, I think that, and it shows you today, Big Don, that politicians who, for whatever reason, if they do something, if they do wrongdoing, you know, they're going to get stigmatized. That's going right to their name, and it's going to stick to their name. We said this with Ted Cruz a couple weeks ago with this whole Texas thing. I mean, whoever's going to run against him in the Senate, whoever his next opponent is, they're going to use that if Ted even decides to run for president in 4 years or 3 years now, they're going to use that as an attack. They're going to say probably like when Texas was suffering in the cold, Ted Cruz was in Mexico. That's what they're gonna use for
It's going to
a
be all over the political smear ads.
yes, that's what I was trying to say. That's their tactic. And that's the same thing with everyone. And with Cuomo in particular, that's what they're gonna do. And it's serious. It's serious.
Politicians can dig up dirt on anyone, but when you're a national headline, it's over.
And he's a national headline.
Let's see here. Let's see. We're gonna spend a little bit more time here. Let's quickly go over. Let's go
This
over
is his
the.
statement.
Oh, let's read the statement.
He said, questions have been raised about some of my past interactions with people in the office. I never intended to offend anyone or cause any harm. I spend most of my life at work, and colleagues are often also personal friends. At work, sometimes I think I'm being playful and make jokes that I think are funny. I do, on occasion, tease people in what I think is good in a good, matured way. I do it in public and in private. You have seen me do it at briefings hundreds of times. I have teased people about their personal lives, their relationships, about getting married or not getting married. I mean, no offense, in only attempt to add more levity and banter to what is a very serious business. I now understand that my interactions may have been insensitive or too personal, and that some of my comments, given my position, made others feel in ways I never intended. I acknowledge some of the things I have said been misinterpreted as an unwanted filtration. To the extent anyone felt that way, I am truly sorry about that. To be clear, I never inappropriately touched anybody and I never propositioned anybody, and I never intended to make anyone feel uncomfortable. But these are allegations that New Yorkers deserve answers to. That's why I asked for an outside independent review that looks at these allegations. Separately, my office has heard anecdotally that some people have reached out to Ms. Bennett to express displeasure about her coming forward. My message to anyone doing that is you have misjudged what matters to me and my administration, and you should stop now. Period. That's what he said. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, pretty straightforward if you ask me. I mean, there's kind of a degree of separation between sexual assault and then making comments within the workplace, but still,
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's a PR. It's a PR move. Classic.
Yep. Yep, I agree. I mean, he kind of has to do it though. I mean, it's kind of like the way he wants to do it, professional way. I mean, I think a lot of people do this anyways. They just wanted to get out there instead of staying silent. So I think that he made a good decision here of coming out in public and explaining what happened, admitting to some of the things he might have done that might have hurt people. But I mean, again, it just shows you that, I mean, actions have consequences. And if he did do these things, I mean, these are consequences that will probably result in him not having a job.
No job for Cuomo.
Yeah, that's the serious side of politics and being in the public eye.
Now, we're running a bit low on time here, but let's quickly get to the news Syria.
Oh yeah. So first, I think this is a pretty big story. The 1,400 stimulus payments, these did come out. The Senate voted
We're
50
getting the
to
paychecks, people.
49. Yes. Here's just a couple of the things. The big picture. This is from Yahoo News. Um, Anyone who makes less than $7,500 or heads of households who make up $1,200 and 50, I mean 500, 1,000 $112,000 and 500 will qualify for the $1,400 payments. Couples who make less than $150,000 will get $2,800. Individuals who make between 75,000 and 80, and couples who earn between 150 to 160,000 will receive a reduced payment. And parents who qualify will get an additional $1,400 for every child claimed on their most recent tax returns. I think this was a big thing, even though the pandemic is slowly winding down.
Yep.
It's kind of going down now. You can see the cases are starting to drop off a bit. but still, there's a lot of economic need. People are out of work still. I mean, the economic consequences here could take maybe a year or two, or even longer than that, for people to really
Yeah.
go back
Let's
to.
not for I think it's important for people to remember. Once you get vaccinated, I think there's going to be public barriers there
I agree.
in terms of mask laws, what businesses could stay open or not, whether or not there's certain cases, because it's hard to populate the entire population, whatever the time frame is.
Hmm. I agree. I agree there. And I think that in a lot of ways, yeah, I mean, even though that, even though the pandemic's coming to an end, I think it's going to be years upon years that this information, I mean, that this pandemic is really going to affect daily life. I think we're going to be wearing masks. Dr. Fauci said we might be wearing masks into 2022. Um, I think there's going to be a lot of aspects of that. And I think it's also going to ramble economic consequences as well. I think some people may be going to work, but I think they might have a lot more reduced schedules. And that's going to affect household incomes and things of that nature. And I think that, I mean, what I say is I think this is still necessary to spend because people are in need, you know? There's still hunger out there, there's still poverty out there, people. Um, some people are still suffering, and I think we can't forget that.
Yep. I think that's some good news, but in terms of, well, Biden did bomb Syria, I think that's bad. But all in all, I mean, but if I were to go back to the COVID stimulus plan, yeah, keep it's certainly a crucial time where people are still unemployed. They got to eat. So I say, why not? It's been in demand for a while. The Trump administration has had trouble with that. I think this is something that Biden has promised. You promised to get to 2,000. We're settling on, was it 1,400?
Yeah, 14.
Yeah, because they paid out the original 600. But still, I mean, they accomplished their task. People were getting free money. That's some more debt to our, to our debt ceiling there. But hey, it's going to the American people.
That's what matters here. That's what matters here. All right, let's go to the other serious news this week. This was in regards to airstrikes in Syria that targeted Iran-backed militias. Um, so earlier this week, this was probably the big headline, I believe, on Tuesday or Wednesday. I woke up to and I saw that there was airstrikes on a U.S. airbase. Yeah, U.S. airbase. I believe it was in Syria. No, in Iraq. In Iraq. My bad. Um, yeah, this is where it was February. Um, the attack, and I think somebody had a heart attack on that. So there's been a lot of incidents going on in the Middle East. Um, this has definitely pressed Biden on his foreign policy, what he wanted to do.
Yep.
I know that President Trump was trying to, at the end of uh, his end of his term, he was trying to limit the number of military personnel in Iraq and Syria. He was trying to limit that.
Yep.
However, I think Biden has kind of had the approach of trying to go back in just for security purposes. And also, Biden has inherited a more tensious relationship with Iran, which has gotten, I would say, prior to the pandemic, it was looking like it could go down. We could go down a big, serious war. However, with the coronavirus, things kind of got a lot better.
But
I
now
think
things seem to be acting up in the Middle East again, which, I mean, I'm heavily critical of Middle Eastern foreign policy. So, Biden, I don't know what the hell you're doing, buddy.
yes, and I think there was just news that he did not want a second airstrike. And I mean, don't forget, over 200,000, I think over 200,000 Iraqis passed away. I mean, civilians died due to the war since '03.
Yep.
And I mean, even though there's a lot of, even though our enemies are there in the Middle East with militia groups, and I mean, when you look at the way that these wars are, it's kind of like you don't know who's your enemy and who's not because there's a lot of different militia groups that have different allegiances. They're loyal to one side, but they might be loyal to another. So you don't know who's who.
Yep.
And sometimes these kinds of wars. And I think the U.S. is in a very, I mean, this has always been a very strategic region of the world. It's been like that for years. They're rich in resource. However, there's a lot of cultural barriers. There's a lot of political barriers in terms of the way that they use government there, and that really has really over the past, I'd say 25, 30 years, has affected different administrations. It's made them really think outside the box. Sometimes they've used correct tactics and actions, while other times it has been very tough and it has led us into a war that is never ending. And I think with Biden, he's still, I mean, he's inheriting everything that Trump inherited,
Yep.
and
Which
Obama inherited. And
and Bush kind of. I mean, he fueled it more with the war on terror, but I mean, this has been going down for generations now.
I mean, it's never ending.
Yeah.
It's like I think it's older than it can vote now because it's 18.
Yeah, and the whole conflict in the Middle East has been going back since the 1930s.
Oh yeah, this is not something new. I mean, we've all our whole life the Middle East has been a war zone. I mean, it's been a war zone for such a long time. That's why everyone's leaving, because I mean, you saw big immigration from Syria in 2015, 2016, and now with Iraq, you're seeing, I mean, you saw ISIS, the big caliphate that was present there from 2011. It's still, there's some aspects, but I mean, there was a lot of airstrikes on them within the past 5, 6 years. And this has really caused foreign policy has been a big, big issue in the Middle East. And with President Biden, the decision to attack Iranian militias or linked militias shows you, I don't think that the US is going to be going into the Iran deal anytime soon. I think it also shows that there could be something unwanted in the horizon. That's kind of my thing. I'm always someone who's very skeptical on international relations in a way, because you never know what could go wrong. Um, you always have to be careful in international relations. And I think with Biden, he has to really be careful, because this could really affect millions of lives if something does go wrong. I mean, it just shows you how tough it is with international relations today. But Big Don, I want to get your thoughts on this before we call it quits here in a couple minutes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in terms of the broader sort of issue here, I mean, Biden has kind of had the reputation of being pretty pro war in the Middle East, whether it's
I
voting
agree.
for the Iraq War, whether it's stuff they did within the Obama administration. I mean, people saw this coming, and I think for a lot of people on the left, I mean, I think you're seeing the left as more of this sort of this non-interventionist foreign policy kind of party, especially
Mhm.
with the more progressive you get. So I think for them, it's going to be a letdown. And let's not forget, Trump was the one that was hyping up. Oh, I've been making peace deals in the Middle East. I've been pulling troops out, even
Yep.
though he did do a lot of bombings there.
He did. He did.
But I think this is going to be. I think this is going to hurt the party. I think it's going to hurt the reputation of the Democratic Party. I think it's going to hurt part of the legacy of Biden now that he's kind of entered into this path.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
hard to navigate out, but at the same time, I mean, innocent people are dying. I mean, that it is what it is. I think that's just the cause of war, and obviously you want to minimize that from a war ethics perspective. But still, I mean, I think we, I think it's best to minimize any conflict within the Middle East and try our best to either form good relationships or just to pull out of it in general.
I agree. I agree there. I think it's going to be, I think the one thing though is that if you are going to try to pull out, it's going to be over a period of time. It's not going to be within 1 year. It's probably going to be within the next 10 years. So it's going to expand presidential, it's going to expand not just one administration, it's going to include several administrations. And I think for Biden, I think his main issue right now is with the whole Iran, the threat of Iran. I think it's a very, very big threat. The Iran nuclear deal was something that had negative and positive
Yeah, it
effects
could,
to it,
it's a threatening scenario
and
because
it.
you're
I
talking
mean,
about
it's
a potential
very.
enemy.
Yeah, it
Getting
is a
nuclear weapons.
potential enemy, and I mean, you have Syria right now; it's a failed government. Iraq, failed government. I mean, you see this area. I mean, it's something. It's dangerous. If you make one wrong decision, what's going to happen?
Yeah, people are going to die.
Yes, it's also an ethics perspective, and it's also what's best for the US. Is it best to pull out troops and then just let everything go wrong there? Is it best for the UN to get involved? Is it best for the Security Council to step in? What's best? Sometimes you have to, as the US, sometimes you have to step away. You don't want to get your own citizens hurt and get involved. And then other times you can't. Sometimes you're going to say, well, look, this is the area where we believe they could be a bigger, greater threat in the future. So we have to step in and intervene. I mean, this is all foreign policy and strategic studies. But I think with Biden, if he wants to kind of please the left, he's going to probably have to start reducing
Yeah.
numbers and also learning to come to the table with Iran, and also with Iraq and bring in Syria, and bring in Jordan and bring in Turkey, and say, look, we're trying to promote a peaceful and prosperous geographic region. We need your help. We need
You don't want
this.
your
We need
people to
that.
die.
Yes, because if one thing goes wrong here, more innocents are going to pass away due to a mistake. And that is the whole thing that Biden needs to avoid when it comes time to foreign policy in the Middle East.
Yeah, well, foreign policy is tough, but I think that's going to do it for tonight. We had a good hour stream right there. Thank you for all who decided to stick around during the live stream, and thank you for all who are now listening to this and make it through the end. We really do appreciate you guys. Check out our Twitter and our new Instagram. Plug the Twitter right there. There's the Peace and Chaos program, and check out our Instagram at Peace and Chaos underscore
Podcast.
podcast.
All
Yes,
right, everyone. Thank you all again. And also, we're going to have an announcement right here, right now. So, we did rebrand the Peace and Chaos image a bit. However, we're going to still have our live stream every single Saturday at 8 p.m. And we're also going to be doing some videos that are going to come out again. So, like how we previously did before the whole stream season we started,
yep.
we're also going to be doing some videos again. So it's not going to be live content, but it's still going to be content where you can find any place, anywhere, anytime. Again, guys, thank you all for joining in. If you're listening in later on, I hope you enjoyed it as well. I'm DJ Aceman with Big Don. Have a good one.
Peace.
See ya.